week, guys? The Curious Owl here, and for this week's Top 5 Wednesday, this is kind of a throwback challenge where you can basically go to any of the previous Top 5 Wednesdays and pick your one that you want to do for this week. So this week, I'm going to be talking about my top 5 favorite urban fantasies. But for this, I'm kind of cheated because I realize I don't read a lot of urban fantasies at all. If I read any kind of fantasy, it's typically high fantasy. But I have a lot of urban supernatural stuff that I also think could play into urban fantasy because they have a lot of mystical elements that I think would work in fantasy. Coming in at number 5 for me is the Mortal Instruments series, or what I have read of it, by Cassandra Clare. Currently, I am working on the second book, City of Ashes, so I haven't really delved far into this series, but from what I can see of it, this is definitely one that I really truly enjoy because I like the idea of using the runes, which is used in various different mythological folklore throughout the world, and the idea of the demons and shapeshifters and all kinds of things like that, which are typically seen a lot in fantasy work. At number 4 is the Immortal series by Alison Noel. This currently here is the second book because I can't find the first one. This is a series basically dealing with a girl who has abilities to see auras, and when she touches people, she can see their memories, and she also can read minds, and a lot of that I feel like is very fantastical in itself. I feel like a lot of the powers that she has could be seen in other fantasy work, and this is still more kind of supernatural. There's a lot of talk about things like runes and crystals and things of that nature, which are very fantasy based. At number 3 is one of the series I think that really got me into the supernatural realm in the first place, and that is the Kissed by an Angel series by Elizabeth Chandler. This is a really well loved book, as you guys can see, as this has been passed around through so many people who've all loved it when they've read it. I read it, I had my sister read it, all her friends read it, and it's just so well loved and probably will never leave my shelf because I love this series so much. This deals more so with angels and kind of the purposes of them, and I really like this series a lot because of the fact that it hit something that I didn't really see a lot within supernatural work, and also kind of plays with the idea of fantasy in a sense because the idea of angels and demons. Elizabeth Chandler just has a really great style of writing that I think that if she was to write fantasy, she would do really well with it, because with her ability to write supernatural stories really well, I feel like transferring to something like high fantasy would be really, really easy for her. These next two are probably not going to be any surprise to anyone who's been on this channel for a while, but coming at number 2 is the Beautiful Creatures series by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stohl. You guys know this is one of my most favorite supernatural stories of all time. I love this relationship between Ethan and Lena, and I love all the lore building that is within this series. I just finished the main series for my reread series here a few weeks ago, and I'm going to be reading the other supplemental work that is within this world that I'm very excited to get to, but currently I've been in a standstill because I've been kind of burnt out with the readathons I did in July. But this deals a lot with this idea of the caster world, which has a lot of people called casters, or who I would equate to almost like witches in a sense, and they have all different magical abilities. One of the main characters, Lena, is what's called a natural, and she basically has the power to like use the elements almost, and other kinds of things that she has basically been inherited from her mother, who was what's called a cataclysm, who is like really, really powerful, like one of the most powerful casters in the world. And there's a lot of lore building. There's a lot of, travel to different areas that involves things like voodoo and black magic and things of that nature. So because of that, I think that this could be seen as a fantasy series in a sense, because it deals with so much magic that I think is atypical for something that would be seen as supernatural. And finally, my number 1 top favorite urban fantasy, to my knowledge, based on what I know of urban fantasies, is the Morganville Vampire series by Rachel Kane. So this series does deal with vampires, so it's more so on the supernatural side of things, but personally I feel like the way that this story is structured, it could easily have been more kind of urban fantasy if there was a little bit more magic involved with it, because pretty much the entirety of the story is about this town that is run by vampires. And I don't know if anyone else thought of this, but that seems kind of fantasy-like to me. It's basically a city that is completely cut off from the rest of the world. There's very little traffic into town from other cities or people that come in and out of town. And pretty much when you get there, it's very hard to get out because of the fact that the people that live there know that they're run by vampires. And so I feel like this has a lot of potential to go into fantasy. I just wish that it had a little bit more involved with it. but because of the supernatural elements and the fact that it plays so well, I think, with the idea of being a fantasy, it works for what I think of when I think of urban fantasies. So there you guys go. Those are my top 5 books that I think would be considered urban fantasies because of their supernatural elements. So like I said, I kind of cheated with this list because they're not exactly urban fantasies. City of Bones is probably the closest to urban fantasy you will get, but I feel like each of these stories has the potential to become fantasies if either they had more magic incorporated in them, or, you know, the authors could easily take these stories and make them more fantastical to make them urban fantasies, because they're kind of on that teetering point between supernatural and fantasy. So thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit the button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.